Now we're going to turn to chapter 7, compound and complex sentences. This is really the last chapter of the book. The next chapter just has some miscellaneous stuff. So there's one more exercise here in this chapter. So if you have studied everything in the book so far, you will have only to learn the names of the constructions which you have already practiced. So you've done these compound and complex sentences. You've actually diagrammed them before. Now we're just going to give names for them and talk about exactly what constitutes the different types of sentences. So the first sentence that we have is a simple sentence, contains one main or independent clause. So this is the sentences that you know, like Rex barks, I saw John, I ran away, etc., etc. Right? A subject and a predicate that stand alone. They don't require anything else. That's a simple sentence. Easy. Then we have a compound sentence, which contains two or more main clauses. So how are we going to join them together? Now, one of the reasons learning these four types of sentences is important is that it helps with punctuation. So let's take a look at a compound sentence. Contains two or more main clauses. So let me give you those main clauses. Rex barks, Edgemel, the cat, meows. So here we have two independent clauses, and I put a comma there. But this is actually an error in punctuation. And this is a very common error. It happens all the time. I've done it, you've done it. Let's take a look. We have an independent clause, Rex barks. Then we have another one, Edgemel meows, right? Doing this, Rex barks, Edgemel meows, we all think, oh, that doesn't look right. So what do? We put a comma. But that's also incorrect. It is called a comma splice. So what you need to do is put either a semicolon, that'd be one way to do it, or now this would take away its status of being a sentence. It would be two sentences. You would put a period. But if you want to keep it one sentence, what you're going to do is you're going to put a coordinating conjunction, fanboys, for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. Rex barks, comma, and Edgemel meows. Rex barks, comma, but Edgemel meows, and so on and so forth. This is necessary, this comma and this coordinating conjunction. If you were to take out the comma, you would have a problem as well. Okay, so this is a compound sentence, and we can think of many others. I ran to the store, and he ran with me, right? Compound sentence. Now, the next type of sentence is a complex sentence. So compound, what we're doing is we're combining these two things which are similar, the main clauses, and we can have more than two. We could have Rex barks, Edgemel meows, and Chubby the hamster eats, or I don't know what sound hamsters make, but whatever sound they make. So we could add many, 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 many sentences. Just put comma, 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 comma. Eventually, you have to end the last one with a coordinating conjunction. Or you could put, if you're using polysyndeton, a figure of speech, you could put many conjunctions. Anyway, number 3, a complex sentence. Complex sentence contains one main clause and one or more subordinate clauses. Remember, subordinate dependent clauses. So think to yourself, what are the dependent clauses? We have adverb clauses, adjective clauses, noun clauses. All you need is a sentence that has an independent clause and one of those dependent clauses. For instance, let's just keep the same example. Rex barks, right? Well, let's do this. Let's do an adjective clause first, since that was the first one, one of the first ones we learned. Rex, that dog barks loudly. So what do we have? We have Rex as our subject. That dog is a adjective clause, and then barks would be the predicate for Rex, and loudly is an adverb. So this is a complex sentence. It has an independent clause, right? Rex barks loudly. And then it has a dependent clause, which is an adjective clause, that dog. Okay, we can also think of Rex barks when he's hungry. Okay, what kind of dependent clause is this? Rex barks when he's hungry, right? This is independent clause with a adverb clause, right? Okay, we can also do it with a noun clause. I saw Rex bark. I saw Rex bark. Or I heard Rex bark. So here we have independent clause. I heard, and then the direct object, which is a noun clause, Rex bark. And that's a complex sentence. And we could add many subordinate clauses. We could add a noun clause, an adjective clause, and an adverb clause all at the same time, right? I heard Rex, that dog, bark when the mailman came. So here you've got all three. I heard Rex, that dog, bark when the mailman came. Whole thing is a noun clause. Rex, that dog, bark when the mailman came. When the mailman came, adverb clause. That dog, adjective clause. Very simple. And then we have a compound complex sentence. Contains two or more main clauses and one or more subordinate clauses. So how is this one different than what I just did, where I had a main clause and a whole bunch of subordinate clauses? Well, the difference is now we have two or more main clauses, right? So it's a combination of the compound sentence and the complex sentence. That's why it's compound complex. So Rex barks and Edgemel meows when he is hungry. So look, we have independent clause, Rex barks, coordinating conjunction, right, with the comma, and Edgemel meows, and then we have a adverb clause, when he is hungry, right, talking about Edgemel. So that has two independent clauses and a subordinate clause. And that's all you need for a compound complex sentence. That's the bare minimum. Contains two or more main clauses and one or more subordinate clauses. So I could add more. I could say Rex. I could add a whole bunch more. Rex, that dog, barks, and Edgemel, that cat, meows when he is hungry, right? And so on and so forth. You could add a lot to that. Sentences can actually be quite long as you punctuate them correctly and follow all of the rules. So every sentence must have, go on. Every sentence must have at least one main clause. Otherwise, it's a sentence fragment. It's not a full sentence, of course, or it is not a sentence. The first sentences you diagrammed were all simple sentences. Then when you studied compound elements, this is in the second chapter, I believe, you saw that two main clauses might be joined to make a compound sentence, right? Here, again, we have the fanboys. But Joe went to school, but I stayed at home. Right? So there's going to be a comma, right, after Joe went to school. So all of these are going to be done with dotted lines. And you've already done this. As soon as you diagrammed your first dependent clause, you had diagrammed a complex sentence, right? Complex sentence, main clause plus dependent clause. So you've already done them. The whole chapter that you had on independent and dependent clauses, you were diagramming these. Additional subordinate clause would make it would not make it any more complex. Okay, right? So here, the man who walks to work. So here, the man who walks to work understands. So right, we have the main clause. The man understands. This is the main clause. Who walks to work would be the adjective clause. the man who walks to work understands what I mean, noun clause, what I mean when I say I need a car. All right, when I say, adverb clause. When I say I need a car, another noun clause. I need a car. All right. So write this out. You'll see exactly what we're talking about here. But we have, look, independent clause. Just one independent clause. Everything else, adjective clause, noun clause, adverb clause, noun clause. It's still a complex sentence. It's not compound complex because it only has one main clause, right? Easy. So let's go on. Finally, putting together the requirements for compound and complex, we have a compound complex sentence. So look, exactly what I mentioned, right? We have Rex growled, independent clause, but father kept the cat. Look, another independent clause. Kept the cat that he found. All right, what do we have there? Adjective clause, right? So all we needed was one dependent clause, and it happened to be here an adjective clause. Could it be simpler or more logical? No, right? Now, I know that these get overwhelming because you're like, where does this go? Where does this go? Where does this go? Always remember when you're diagramming clauses, identify the clauses first. So what does that mean? Find a subject, find a verb, decide whether that's independent or dependent. If it's independent, you're done. If it's dependent, decide, is it acting as an adverb, an adjective, or a noun? And then diagram. Don't get overwhelmed with the fact that there are so many. It's fine. It's all the same principles. So look at number one. John is mad, and I am glad, and I know how to please him. Okay? So John is mad, and I am glad, and I know how to please him. So technically you don't need commas here because you have a subject and a predicate, subject and a predicate, subject and a predicate, okay? Different rules for comma. So John is mad, and I am glad, and I know how to please him. So for here, you can, and all of the conjunctions as well. So we have how many independent clauses? John is mad, I am glad, I know how to please him. Okay, so here's the question. What is to please him? I know how to please him. Just leave it at that. But what kind of sentence is this? Think. We only have three main clauses, right? And then a infinitive, right? So to please him is not a dependent clause, if you thought that. So we have three main clauses. It's a compound sentence. Easy. So diagram the rest, and you're done diagramming in Rexmarks.